The transport shuttle touched down on Station Kethris with a heavy thud that rattled through the metal floor. Maya Brooks grabbed her gear bag and stood up, checking her uniform one last time. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be right. This assignment could get her killed if she made even one mistake. She stepped through the airlock and into the station proper. The air hit her immediately. It was hot and dry, with a smell she couldn't quite identify, something like heated metal mixed with animal musk. The lighting was different too, more orange than the white lights humans preferred. It made everything look strange and foreign. 2 Karvathi guards stood near the entrance. They were massive, easily 8 feet tall with thick gray skin that looked like armor plating. Their eyes were large and dark, with pupils that reflected the light like a cat's eyes. When they looked at her, Maya felt like prey being sized up by predators. "The human," one of them said. His voice was deep and rough like gravel being crushed. "Follow." Maya followed them through the corridors. Other Karvathi passed by, some in military uniforms, others in what looked like work clothes. Every single one of them stopped to stare at her. She kept her face neutral, her back straight, her stride confident. Show no fear. That was the first rule. The guards led her to a large open area. Maya's breath caught when she saw it. The drill yard was enormous, easily the size of 3 football fields. The ground was packed dirt, hard as concrete. Equipment was scattered around: climbing walls, obstacle courses, weapon racks, and fighting rings. And everywhere there were Karvathi warriors, hundreds of them. They stopped what they were doing when Maya entered. The entire yard went silent. Every eye turned toward her. Maya felt the weight of their stares like physical pressure against her chest. She kept walking, following the guards toward the center of the yard. A Karvathi warrior stepped forward from the crowd. He was bigger than the others, with scars covering his arms and face. One of his ears was torn, and his eyes held a cold intelligence that made Maya's instincts scream danger. "I am Krathzul," he said. "Drill master of this yard." "You are the human they sent?" "Lieutenant Maya Brooks," he replied. Her voice came out steady, which was good. Inside, her heart was pounding. Combat liaison officer assigned under the Treaty of Archon. Krathzul walked around her slowly, looking her up and down like she was livestock at market. "You are small, weak, soft. The humans insult us by sending a female." Maya had been warned this would happen. The Karvathi culture was built around strength and combat. They didn't understand human concepts of equality. To them, females were for breeding, not fighting. She had to change that perception right now. "Gender means nothing where I come from," Maya said. "Only ability matters. Only results matter." Krathzul stopped in front of her. He leaned down, bringing his scarred face close to hers. "Big words for such a small creature. Can you back them up?" "Test me and find out." A ripple went through the assembled warriors. Some made sounds that might have been laughter. Others growled low in their throats. Krathzul's eyes narrowed. "Very well," he said. "In our culture, newcomers must prove themselves. We call it the proving. You will face opponents in the ring. You will fight until you submit or until you cannot continue. If you refuse, you will be sent back to your ship in disgrace." Maya had read about the proving in the briefing files. She had hoped to avoid it for a few days, maybe build some rapport first, but the Karvathi didn't work that way. They needed to establish hierarchy immediately. She was either strong enough to stand among them or she wasn't. "I accept," Maya said. Krathzul showed his teeth. On a human, it might have been a smile. On him, it looked threatening. "Good. Your opponents are waiting." He gestured toward one of the fighting rings. Maya walked over, her boots crunching on the packed dirt. The ring was a simple circle marked in the ground about 30 feet across. No ropes, no padding, just hard earth. She heard movement behind her and turned. 5 young Karvathi were entering the ring. They were smaller than the adults, maybe 6 feet tall, but still larger and heavier than Maya. Their skin was smoother, not yet scarred by years of combat. Their eyes were bright with excitement. Cubs. They were sending her against their children. Maya understood immediately. This wasn't an insult. In Karvathi culture, cubs were already dangerous. They trained from the moment they could walk. If she couldn't handle their children, she had no business standing among their warriors. The cubs spread out, circling her. They moved with natural grace, their bodies low, their claws extended. One of them growled, a sound that started deep in his chest and vibrated through the air. The others picked it up, creating a chorus of threatening sounds. Maya took a breath and centered herself. She had studied Karvathi combat tactics during the 3-month journey to the station. They were aggressive fighters relying on strength and speed. They attacked in packs using coordinated strikes to overwhelm opponents. They were trained to go for quick kills, but they had weaknesses too. They fought on instinct, not strategy. They expected their opponents to meet strength with strength, and they had never fought a human before. The first cub lunged. He came fast, claws reaching for her throat. Maya sidestepped at the last second, using minimal movement. The cub's momentum carried him past her. She didn't strike back. Not yet. The second cub came from her left. Maya dropped low, sweeping her leg out. The cub's feet went out from under him and he hit the ground hard. The watching warriors made sounds of surprise. The third and fourth cubs attacked together, trying to pin her between them. Maya rolled forward, coming up behind them. One of them spun fast, but Maya was already moving, staying just out of reach. The cubs regrouped, circling again. They were frustrated now. Nothing they did could touch her. Maya could see them thinking, trying to figure out what to do. The fifth cub, who had been hanging back, suddenly charged straight at her. No tricks, just pure aggression. Maya stood her ground until the last possible moment, then pivoted and grabbed the cub's arm. She used his own momentum to throw him off balance, then applied a joint lock she had learned in Marine training. The cub yelped in surprise and pain. Not real pain, just the sharp discomfort of having your arm bent at an angle it wasn't meant to go. Maya held the lock for 3 seconds, making her point, then released him and stepped back. The cubs attacked again and again. They tried every trick they knew. But Maya had something they didn't have. She had patience. She had strategy. And she had 20 years of martial arts training that taught her how to fight opponents bigger and stronger than herself. For 20 minutes, she moved through the cubs like water flowing around rocks. She redirected their attacks. She used their strength against them. She exhausted them while barely breaking a sweat herself. Finally, the last cub collapsed on the ground, panting hard. His tongue hung out of his mouth and his sides heaved with each breath. The others were sprawled around the ring, equally exhausted. Maya stood in the center, her breathing slightly elevated but controlled. She had a few bruises and scratches, but nothing serious. She looked up at Krathzul. The drill master was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. The entire yard was silent. Even the cubs were quiet, watching her with wide eyes. Krathzul finally spoke. "You did not fight. I survived," Maya said. "That's what matters. You did not strike to injure. You did not try to prove your strength. I proved what I needed to prove. I'm still standing." Krathzul was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a growl. "Perhaps there is more to humans than we believed. Perhaps you are not as weak as you appear." He turned to address the assembled warriors. "The human has passed the proving. She will train with us. Anyone who wishes to challenge her is welcome to do so." No one moved forward. The cubs were still lying in the ring, staring at Maya like they had never seen anything like her before. Maya allowed herself a small smile. She had survived the first test. Now came the hard part. Now she had to earn their respect. The first week on Station Kethris was the hardest of Maya's life. She woke before dawn every day and reported to the drill yard at the same time as the Karvathi warriors. The training was brutal. It was designed for beings twice her size and 3 times her strength. But she showed up anyway. The morning runs were the worst. The Karvathi ran in full combat gear across obstacle courses that included walls, pits, and barriers, designed to simulate battlefield conditions. Maya ran the same course in her human equipment, which was lighter but offered less protection. She finished last every single time, but she finished. The adult Karvathi ignored her mostly. They went about their training as if she wasn't there, but they watched. She could feel their eyes on her when she struggled to climb a wall that they vaulted over easily. She could hear their dismissive snorts when she had to use a different technique to clear an obstacle they powered through. She didn't care. She had a mission. She was there to build understanding between 2 species, to prove that humans and Karvathi could work together. Every day she lasted was a small victory. The cubs were different. They didn't ignore her. After the proving, they watched her constantly. Wherever she went in the drill yard, she could feel their stares. They whispered to each other in their language when she passed. She couldn't tell if they were mocking her or something else. On the 5th day, something changed. Maya was practicing hand-to-hand combat forms in a corner of the yard, running through the basic sequences she had learned in Marine training. The movements were designed to be efficient, to use minimal energy for maximum effect. They looked nothing like Karvathi combat styles, which were all power and aggression. She became aware of someone watching her. She turned and saw one of the cubs from the proving. He was standing a few meters away, his head tilted to the side like a curious dog. When she stopped, he took a step back. "It's okay," Maya said. She didn't know if he understood English, but her tone should convey meaning. "You can watch." The cub didn't move closer, but he didn't leave either. Maya went back to her forms. After a few minutes, she noticed the cub was mimicking her movements. When she shifted her stance, he shifted his. When she threw a punch, he threw one too. Over the next few days, more cubs joined. By the end of the second week, Maya had a regular audience of 7 young Karvathi who watched her morning practice sessions. They copied her movements, trying to understand this strange fighting style that had defeated them in the ring. Krathzul noticed. He said nothing, but Maya caught him watching sometimes, his scarred face unreadable. On the 15th day, Maya arrived at the yard to find the 7 cubs waiting for her. One of them, the cub who had watched her first, stepped forward. He made a gesture she had seen the adult warriors use. It was a request for instruction. Maya looked around. None of the adult Karvathi were paying attention, or at least they were pretending not to. This was her decision to make. "All right," she said. "Let's start with basic stance." Teaching the cubs was challenging. They were strong and fast, but they had been trained to use brute force. Getting them to understand leverage and technique was difficult. But they were eager students. They practiced every movement she showed them with intense focus. The cub who had first approached her was named Gresh. She learned this when he started responding to commands. He was smaller than the others, which probably meant he was younger. But he was quick and smart. He picked up the techniques faster than his peers. Maya taught them joint locks, throws, and defensive positions. Things that didn't require matching your opponent's strength. The cubs struggled at first, but slowly they began to understand. Fighting wasn't just about power. It was about timing, positioning, and making your opponent do what you wanted them to do. After 3 weeks, something unexpected happened. Maya was running the obstacle course when she came to the climbing wall. It was a 30-foot vertical surface with minimal handholds. The Karvathi climbed it easily with their natural strength and claws. Maya had to use climbing technique, finding the right holds, distributing her weight properly. She was halfway up when her hand slipped. She caught herself, but she was stuck, unable to find the next handhold. She could climb down and try again, but that meant losing time and looking weak. She heard a sound below her. Gresh was at the base of the wall. He looked up at her, then started climbing. He moved fast, his claws digging into the surface easily. When he reached her position, he shifted his body to create a foothold. He was offering to help her. Maya hesitated. Accepting help might be seen as weakness, but refusing might insult the cub. She made a decision and used Gresh's shoulder to push herself up to the next handhold. From there, she could reach the top. When she pulled herself over the edge, she looked back. Gresh was climbing up behind her. When he reached the top, he made a sound that might have been approval. "Thank you," Maya said. Gresh tilted his head, then climbed back down to continue his own training. That afternoon, Krathzul approached Maya for the first time since the proving. His massive form cast a shadow over her as she was checking her equipment. "The cubs follow you," he said. It wasn't a question. "They watch me train sometimes," Maya replied carefully. "A few of them asked me to show them some techniques." Karvathi cubs choose their mentors by instinct. They follow those they respect, those they believe can teach them to survive. Krathzul was quiet for a moment. "It is unusual for them to choose an outsider." "I don't want to overstep," Maya said. "If you want me to stop training them, I will." Krathzul made a rumbling sound deep in his chest. "I did not say that. I merely observe. The cubs see something in you. Perhaps we should see it too." He walked away before Maya could respond. After that, things shifted in the yard. The adult Karvathi began to acknowledge her presence. They didn't speak to her, but they stopped pretending she didn't exist. When she finished the obstacle course, some of them would nod in recognition. When she trained with the cubs, they watched with interest instead of dismissal. One day, during a break in training, Maya sat on the edge of the yard drinking water. She was reviewing tactical reports on her datapad, trying to understand the latest intelligence about pirate activity in the sector. She heard the sound of footsteps and looked up. Gresh was approaching, followed by the 6 other cubs who regularly trained with her. They didn't say anything. They simply settled down around her. their large bodies folding onto the ground. Gresh sat closest, his shoulder nearly touching her leg. Maya understood what this meant. She had read about Karvathi pack behavior in the briefing files. When cubs curled up near someone, it was a sign of trust. They were saying that they felt safe with that person. They were acknowledging that person as pack. Slowly, carefully, Maya reached out and placed her hand on Gresh's head. His skin was warm and surprisingly smooth. The cub's eyes closed and he made a sound like a purr, a deep rumbling that vibrated through his whole body. The other cubs shifted closer. Within minutes, Maya was surrounded by young Karvathi, all of them relaxed and calm in her presence. Across the yard, Krathzul watched. Next to him stood another warrior, a female named Xena who served as second in command. She made a questioning sound. "The human has claimed cubs," Krathzul said. "Or perhaps they have claimed her. Either way, she is becoming pack. This changes things. Should we stop it?" Xena asked. Krathzul was silent for a long time. "No, let us see where this goes. The cubs have good instincts. If they trust her, perhaps there is a reason." Maya sat with the cubs until the break ended. When they stood to return to training, Gresh looked back at her with something like affection in his eyes. She smiled at him. For the first time since arriving on Station Kethris, Maya felt like she might actually succeed in her mission. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building connections. She was becoming part of something larger than herself. The days continued. Maya trained harder than ever, pushing her body to its limits. The cubs practiced the techniques she taught them with dedication. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the adult Karvathi began to treat her differently, not as an outsider or a curiosity, but as something else, something closer to respect. One evening, after a particularly hard training session, Krathzul called everyone to attention. The entire yard fell silent. Warriors and cubs alike turned to face the drill master. "Tomorrow we conduct live combat exercises," Krathzul announced.
"Full contact, full intensity?"
"Teams will be assigned at dawn. All warriors will participate, including the human." Maya's heart jumped. Live combat exercises meant fighting for real, not just practice. It would be dangerous. She could get seriously hurt. But it also meant Krathzul was treating her like a real warrior, not just a diplomatic observer. "I'll be ready," Maya said loudly, so everyone could hear. Krathzul looked at her and showed his teeth. "We shall see, Lieutenant Brooks. We shall see." That night, Maya lay in her quarters thinking about how far she had come. She had arrived expecting hostility and got it, but she had also found something unexpected. The cubs trusted her. They looked to her for guidance. And the adult warriors were starting to see her as more than just a weak human. Tomorrow would be the real test. Tomorrow she would have to prove herself again, but this time in actual combat conditions. She closed her. Dawn came too quickly. Maya stood in the drill yard with the other warriors, waiting for team assignments. The air was cold and the sky above the station was still dark. Around her, Karvathi warriors prepared their equipment, checking weapons and armor. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation. Krathzul stood on a raised platform in the center of the yard. Next to him was Xena, holding a datapad with the team assignments. The drill master's voice boomed across the yard. "Today's exercise simulates a hostile boarding action. One team will defend a fortified position. The other team will attack. Weapons are set to training mode. They will hurt, but they will not kill. Armor is mandatory. The exercise ends when the objective is captured or when the defending team holds for 1 hour." Maya had drawn her armor from the equipment station earlier. It was standard human combat gear, lighter than Karvathi armor but designed for mobility. She checked the seals one more time, making sure everything fit correctly. "Attacking team," Krathzul continued. "Led by Xena, defenders led by Horvath." He began calling out names. Maya listened carefully. When her name was called, she learned she was on the defending team. She would be fighting alongside Horvath, a massive veteran warrior with a reputation for brutal efficiency. The cubs were not participating in this exercise. They were too young. Instead, they would observe from the sidelines, learning from watching the adults fight. The defending team gathered around Horvath. He was even larger than Krathzul, with scars that covered most of his visible skin. His eyes were cold and calculating. When he looked at Maya, she couldn't tell what he was thinking. "Human," he said. His voice was rough, like stones grinding together. "You will hold position 3. Interior corridor, second level. Your job is to slow any attackers who breach the outer defenses. Can you do this? Yes, Maya said. If you fail, the exercise is lost. If you run, I will know. Do you understand? I won't run. Horvath stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. Good. Take your position. The fortified position was a mock-up of a ship's interior, built inside one of the station's large training bays. It had multiple levels, narrow corridors, and defensive choke points. Maya made her way to position 3, a corridor junction on the second level. She had a clear view down 2 hallways and cover from a structural support beam. She checked her weapon. It was a training rifle, set to deliver electric shocks instead of lethal rounds. Getting hit would hurt and might temporarily disable muscles, but it wouldn't cause permanent damage. She tested the sights and made sure the power cell was fully charged. Around her, she could hear the other defenders taking their positions. Footsteps, equipment clinking, quiet voices coordinating. They had 10 minutes before the exercise began. Maya used the time to study her surroundings. The corridor junction gave her decent lines of sight, but there were blind spots. Attackers could come from multiple directions. She would need to stay mobile, use the cover effectively, and make every shot count. The countdown began.
10 seconds.
5 seconds. A horn blared, echoing through the training bay. The exercise had started. For the first few minutes, everything was quiet. Maya kept her weapon ready, scanning the corridors. She could hear sounds of fighting from the outer levels. Weapons fire, shouts, the heavy thud of bodies hitting walls. The attackers were pushing hard against the outer defenses. Then she heard running footsteps. Multiple targets moving fast. They were coming from the left corridor. Maya shifted position, taking cover behind the support beam. She controlled her breathing, keeping her aim steady. The footsteps got louder. 3 Karvathi warriors rounded the corner, weapons up, moving in formation. Maya fired. Her first shot caught the lead warrior in the chest. He jerked and stumbled, his muscles spasming from the shock. The other 2 scattered, looking for cover. Maya fired again, missing the second warrior but forcing him to dive behind a doorway. The third warrior returned fire. Energy bolts crackled past Maya's head, close enough that she felt the heat. She dropped low and rolled to new cover, coming up behind the equipment crate. She fired twice more. 1 shot hit the doorway where the second warrior was hiding. The other caught the third warrior in the shoulder. 2 down, 1 still fighting. The remaining warrior was pinned behind the doorway, unable to advance. Maya kept him suppressed with careful shots, not wasting ammunition, but making sure he couldn't move. She heard more footsteps. Reinforcements. The attackers were sending more warriors to her position. She had to fall back or she would be overwhelmed. Maya retreated down the right corridor, moving backward while keeping her weapon trained on the junction. As she moved, she triggered a proximity mine she had placed earlier. The mine went off just as 4 more Karvathi warriors entered the junction. The blast knocked 2 of them down and scattered the others. She used the confusion to gain distance, reaching a secondary position 30 meters down the corridor. This position had better cover and a clear retreat route. She could hold here longer. The attackers regrouped and pushed forward. They moved more carefully now, using cover and suppressing fire. Maya traded shots with them, taking down 1 more warrior before they got close enough to make her position untenable. She fell back again, this time to a stairwell that led to the 3rd level. The narrow stairs would force the attackers to come at her 1 or 2 at a time. It was a natural choke point. 3 Karvathi warriors followed her into the stairwell. The lead warrior was hit immediately as he came around the corner. The second tried to rush her, but Maya used a flashbang grenade, temporarily blinding him. She took him down with 2 quick shots. The third warrior was smarter. He waited, using cover and trying to flank. Maya heard movement above her. They were trying to come down from the upper level. She was about to be trapped between 2 forces. She made a decision. Instead of defending, she attacked. She charged down the stairs, surprising the warrior below. She closed the distance before he could bring his weapon up and swept his legs. As he fell, she delivered a shock to his side with her weapon at point-blank range. Then she sprinted down the corridor, heading for position 7 where another defender was holding. If she could link up with friendly forces, they could set up a better defense. She burst into position 7 and found Horvath. The big warrior was behind a heavy barricade, calmly picking off attackers as they tried to advance down the main corridor. He glanced at Maya as she arrived. "Position 3 fell?" he asked. "I slowed them," Maya said, breathing hard. Took down 7 before I had to pull back. Horvath made an approving sound. 7, impressive for a human. Help me hold here. They fought together for the next 10 minutes. Horvath's raw power combined with Maya's tactical thinking created an effective defense. The attackers couldn't break through. Wave after wave hit their position and was turned back. But the attackers were learning. They started using more sophisticated tactics. Flanking maneuvers, suppressing fire, coordinated rushes. Xena was leading them well. They will breach soon, Horvath said. When they do, fall back to position 9. I will cover your retreat. You'll be overwhelmed, Maya said. Yes, but position 9 is critical. It must be held. You can hold it. I have seen you fight. You do not panic under pressure. Before Maya could argue, a massive push came from the attackers. They hit the position from 3 directions at once. Horvath roared and opened fire, his weapon cutting down multiple targets. But there were too many. Go, Horvath shouted. Now, Maya ran. Behind her, she heard Horvath fighting, his weapon firing continuously. She reached position 9 just as the attackers overwhelmed his location. The exercise timer showed 35 minutes had passed. They needed to hold for 25 more minutes. Position 9 was the final defensive point before the objective. If this position fell, the exercise was over. Maya quickly assessed the situation. The position had good cover and limited approach routes, but she was alone. The other defenders had either been eliminated or were holding different positions. She set up defensive measures. Proximity mines at the corridor entrances, equipment crates positioned to create cover and channels for enemy movement. She placed herself where she could cover the most likely attack route while having a clear retreat to the objective room if necessary. The attackers came fast. They knew position 9 was critical. 6 warriors led by Xena herself. Maya opened fire immediately, taking down 1 warrior before they could reach cover. Xena directed her team with quick hand signals. They spread out using suppressing fire to pin Maya down. Maya used everything she had learned. She moved constantly, never staying in one position long enough for them to target effectively. She used the environmental cover, the defensive measures she had prepared, and her smaller size to her advantage. Where the Karvathi warriors had to crouch to fit behind cover, Maya could stay lower and present a smaller target. She took down another warrior, then another. But Xena was pushing hard, accepting casualties to gain ground. They were getting closer. A warrior rushed her position. Maya couldn't get a clean shot before he closed the distance. He tackled her, his massive weight driving her to the ground. She lost her weapon. He raised his weapon to deliver the shock that would eliminate her from the exercise. Maya used a joint lock, twisting his arm and causing him to drop his weapon. She rolled away and grabbed her own weapon, firing twice and eliminating him from the exercise. 3 weeks after the combat exercise, life on Station Kethris had settled into a routine. Maya trained with the cubs every morning, teaching them the techniques that didn't rely on pure strength. In the afternoons, she participated in regular warrior drills. In the evenings, she studied Karvathi culture and language, slowly building her understanding of these alien people. The cubs had become attached to her. Gresh especially. He followed her everywhere when he wasn't in his own training sessions. The other 6 cubs that trained with her formed a protective circle whenever they were together. Other Karvathi noticed this behavior and commented on it, though Maya couldn't always understand what they were saying. Krathzul had started including her in command briefings. Not as a full participant, but as an observer. She learned about station security, patrol schedules, and threat assessments. The neutral zone where Station Kethris existed was dangerous territory. Pirate raids happened regularly, though most were small-scale. The station's defenses were strong enough to discourage major attacks. That morning started like any other. Maya woke before dawn, dressed in her training gear, and headed to the drill yard. The cubs were already waiting for her. They had started arriving early, eager to begin their practice. "Good morning," Maya said, smiling at them. Gresh chirped in response, a sound that meant happiness in Karvathi body language. They ran through basic forms together. Stances, blocks, strikes, throws. The cubs had improved dramatically over the past weeks. They were learning to think differently about combat, to use technique instead of just relying on their natural advantages. After an hour of practice, Maya called for a break. The cubs gathered around her, drinking water and making the sounds that passed for conversation among young Karvathi. Maya was checking her datapad when she heard something that made her stop. An alarm. distant but getting louder. The cubs heard it too. Their ears swiveled toward the sound and their bodies went tense. Maya stood up, her hand instinctively moving toward where her weapon would be if she was armed. The alarm got louder. Red lights began flashing around the yard. Adult warriors started moving with purpose, heading toward their battle stations. Maya's datapad buzzed with an emergency message: hostile borders, multiple breach points, all personnel to defensive positions. Maya's heart rate spiked. This wasn't a drill. Station Kethris was under attack. Krathzul's voice came over the station-wide communication system. All warriors to arms. This is not an exercise. Hostile forces have breached the outer ring. Cubs are to evacuate to the safe chambers immediately. The cubs around Maya started to move toward the evacuation routes following their training, but they kept looking back at her uncertain. Gresh made a questioning sound. Go, Maya said firmly. Follow the evacuation procedures. Stay safe. She turned to head toward the armory where she could draw weapons and join the defense, but she only made it 3 steps before the wall of the drill yard exploded inward. The blast knocked Maya off her feet. She hit the ground hard, her ears ringing. Debris rained down around her. Through the smoke and dust, she saw figures moving, large figures with weapons. Not Karvathi, raiders. They had breached directly into the drill yard. Maya scrambled to her feet, looking for cover. There was none nearby. The explosion had demolished the equipment storage area where weapons were kept. She was unarmed in an open space with hostile forces incoming. Then she heard the cubs. They hadn't evacuated. They were still in the yard, confused and scared by the explosion. 12 young Karvathi, including Gresh and the 7 who trained with her, were between Maya and the incoming raiders. The raiders were Skarl, a mercenary species known for brutality. They were reptilian, standing 7 feet tall with thick scales and heavy weapons. Maya counted 15 of them pouring through the breach. They saw the cubs and grinned with mouths full of sharp teeth. The lead raider, bigger than the others with red markings on his scales, pointed at the cubs. Fresh hostages, grab them. Kill anyone who resists. Maya's training took over. Her mind went cold and clear. She had no weapons. She was outnumbered 15-1. The odds of survival were almost 0. None of that mattered. The cubs were in danger. Her cubs. Her pack. She moved. Maya sprinted toward the nearest raider, keeping low. He saw her coming and raised his weapon, but she was already inside his reach. She swept his legs and he went down hard. She grabbed his weapon as he fell, rolling away before his companions could target her. The weapon was heavy, designed for hands larger than hers. She didn't care. She brought it up and fired. The first shot caught a raider in the chest. He went down. The second shot went wide but made the others scatter for cover. Cubs, Maya shouted. Get behind me. Stay low, move. The cubs obeyed instantly. They scrambled behind equipment and debris, using her as a rallying point. Gresh positioned himself right beside her, his young body tense and ready to fight. The Skarl leader laughed. A human. 1 human against 15 of us. This is your hero, cubs? Watch her die. The raiders opened fire. Energy bolts filled the air. Maya dragged Gresh down behind a fallen support beam, using it as cover. She returned fire, forcing the raiders to keep their heads down. But her weapon was running out of charge. She had maybe 10 shots left. She needed better cover. She needed to get the cubs somewhere safer. She scanned the yard and spotted a storage room across the open space. If she could reach it, she could barricade the door and hold until help arrived. Listen to me, she said to the cubs. When I say run, you all sprint for that room. Don't stop. Don't look back. I'll cover you. Gresh made a sound of protest. He didn't want to leave her. That's an order, Maya said firmly. Protect the others. I'll be right behind you. She stood up and fired 3 quick shots, hitting 2 raiders and forcing the others back. Now, run! The cubs bolted for the storage room. Maya laid down covering fire, moving backward to keep herself between the raiders and the fleeing cubs. Her weapon clicked empty. She threw it at the nearest raider and grabbed a piece of debris, using it as an improvised shield. A raider rushed her. She sidestepped and struck him in the throat with the edge of the debris. He went down gasping. Another came from her left. She used a throw she had taught the cubs, redirecting his momentum and sending him crashing into his companion. The cubs reached the storage room. Gresh held the door open, waiting for her. Maya ran. Energy bolts burned past her. One caught her in the leg and she stumbled. Pain shot through her, but she kept moving. She reached the door. Gresh helped her inside and slammed it shut. Maya immediately started piling equipment against the door, creating a barricade. The cubs helped, moving with frantic energy. "Check for weapons," Maya said through gritted teeth. Her leg was burning where the energy bolt had hit. "Anything we can use to defend ourselves." The cubs scattered through the storage room, searching. Gresh stayed by Maya's side, his eyes wide with concern. She touched his head briefly. "I'm okay. We're going to be okay." The raiders started pounding on the door. The barricade held, but it wouldn't last forever. Maya found a communication panel on the wall and activated it. "This is Lieutenant Maya Brooks. I'm in storage room 7 of the drill yard. I have 12 cubs with me. Hostile forces are attempting to breach our position, requesting immediate assistance." Krathzul's voice came back immediately. "Brooks, hold that position. Warriors are en route. ETA 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Maya looked at the door. The raiders were using something heavy to ram it. The barricade was already starting to shift. They had maybe 5 minutes before the door gave way. The cubs had found some equipment. Training weapons mostly. Not lethal, but better than nothing. They also found some tools that could be used as improvised weapons. Maya distributed everything. Each cub got something to fight with. She took a heavy wrench for herself and a training staff. "Listen carefully," she told the cubs. "When they break through, they'll expect us to be scared. They'll expect us to run or surrender. We're not going to do either. We're going to fight, together, as a pack." The cubs made sounds of acknowledgement. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they trusted her. They would follow her lead. "Gresh," Maya said. "You're fastest. When they breach, I need you to target their leader. The big one with red markings. Go for his legs. Make him fall." "Can you do that?" Gresh nodded, his jaw set with determination. Maya positioned the cubs strategically around the room. She put the strongest ones where the raiders would enter. The smaller ones were positioned to flank. It wasn't much of a battle plan, but it was something. The door began to give way. The barricade crumbled under repeated impacts. Maya gripped her weapons and took a deep breath. "Remember what I taught you," she said to the cubs. "Technique over strength. Timing over speed. And never give up." The door burst open. Raiders poured through. Maya met them head on. She swung the wrench at the first raider's knee. The joint buckled and he went down. She used the staff to vault over his falling body, bringing it down on the second raider's head. The cubs attacked from the sides, following the patterns she had taught them. The storage room became chaos. Cubs and raiders tangled together. Maya moved through the fight like water, striking. Maya collapsed against the wall, her body finally giving out. She had burns, bruises, cuts, and probably some broken bones. Her leg where the energy bolt had hit was still bleeding. But she was alive. More importantly, the cubs were alive. Krathzul crossed the room in 3 long strides. He looked at Maya, then at the cubs gathered around her, then at the unconscious body of the Skarl leader. His scarred face showed an emotion Maya had never seen there before. Something like, "Aw, you held them," he said. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. 1 human against 15 raiders. "You held them until we arrived." Maya tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. Gresh pressed against her side, making worried sounds. She managed to rest her hand on his head, letting him know she was okay. "The cubs," Maya finally managed to say. "Are they all safe? Is anyone hurt?" Krathzul did a quick count. "All 12 are here. Minor injuries only. They fought beside you. They're good fighters," Maya said. "I taught them well." "You did more than teach them," Krathzul said. "You protected them. You put yourself between them and death. That is what Pack does." Other warriors were entering the room now, checking on the cubs, securing the unconscious raiders. Xena appeared carrying medical supplies. She went to Maya immediately and started treating her injuries. "Station security reports the raid is over," Xena said as she worked. 16 raiders total. 6 were killed by our perimeter defenses. 9 were captured. 1 escaped. "The one who escaped," Maya said. "Was he the leader?" "No, the leader is here." "You defeated him." Xena gestured at the Skarl with the red markings, who was now being secured by 3 Karvathi warriors. "You knocked him down with cubs and improvised weapons. Warriors will speak of this for years." Maya winced as Xena applied something to her burns. "I just did what needed to be done. The cubs needed protecting." "That is exactly my point," Krathzul said. He had moved closer and was now kneeling beside Maya so they were at eye level. "In our culture, the strong protect the weak. But we do so because it is duty. because it is how society functions. You protected the cubs because you care for them, because they are your pack. That is different. That is stronger. Gresh made a sound and pressed even closer to Maya. The other cubs were gathering around too, forming a protective circle. Even injured and exhausted, they positioned themselves between Maya and any potential threat. One of the adult warriors, a female named Kresh, approached Krath-Zul. Drillmaster, the cubs have bonded with the human. Look at their behavior. They guard her as they would guard a pack leader. Krath-Zul nodded slowly. I see it. The question is what we do about it. Maya forced herself to focus through the pain and exhaustion. This was important. With respect, Drillmaster, the cubs chose this. I didn't force anything. I trained them because they asked. I protected them because they're mine to protect. Yours, Krath-Zul repeated. You claim them? Yes. Maya's voice was firm despite her injuries. They're my pack. All of them. And I'll fight anyone who tries to hurt them. Krath-Zul was silent for a long moment. The entire room had gone quiet. Every warrior was watching this exchange. Finally, the Drillmaster stood and addressed everyone present. In our culture, pack bonds are sacred. They cannot be forced. They cannot be broken by outsiders. The cubs have chosen the human as pack. She has accepted them. This is our way. This is how it has always been. He turned back to Maya. You are no longer just a liaison officer. You are pack leader to these cubs. You will train them. You will guide them. You will be responsible for their growth into warriors. Do you accept this responsibility? Maya looked at the 12 cubs around her. Gresh, who had watched her first. The others who had followed. They were looking at her with trust and affection in their eyes. How could she say no? I accept, Maya said. Krath-Zul made a gesture with his hand. Then it is done. These cubs are your pack. Any who harm them harm you. Any who challenge them challenge you. The other warriors responded by striking their chests with their fists, a sign of acknowledgement and respect. Even Xena, who was still treating Maya's injuries, made the gesture. Can you stand? Xena asked. I think so, Maya said. With Xena's help and Gresh supporting her other side, Maya got to her feet. Her leg protested but held her weight. She looked at the assembled warriors and cubs. I need to say something, Maya announced. Her voice was rough but clear. When I came here, I was told Karvathi only respects strength. I was told I would need to prove myself through combat. I was told your culture had no room for compassion or mercy. She paused, looking around the room. But I've learned something different. Yes, you value strength, but you also value loyalty. You value pack. You value those who stand and fight when it would be easier to run. That's not so different from human values. We're not as different as everyone thinks. Krath-Zul made a sound that might have been agreement. Perhaps we have both learned something, Lieutenant Brooks. We learned that humans have strength we did not expect. You learned that Karvathi have hearts, not just claws. What happens now? Maya asked. Now you rest, Krath-Zul said. You heal. Your cubs will be cared for while you recover. When you are ready, you will resume their training. But know this. You have changed things here. The cubs are not the only ones who see you differently now. Over the next few days, Maya stayed in the medical bay while her injuries healed. The cubs visited constantly, bringing her food and keeping her company. Gresh rarely left her side. The medical staff had to make a special exception to allow him to stay. Adult warriors came to visit too. Some came to express respect. Others came with questions about human combat tactics. A few came simply to see the human who had held off 15 raiders with nothing but improvised weapons and determination. On the fourth day, Krath-Zul brought news. The station commander wants to meet with you. He has heard about what happened. He wants to discuss expanding the liaison program. Expanding it? Maya asked. Other stations want human liaison officers now. They want to learn from humans. They want their cubs to train with your methods. You have proven something important. You have proven that different doesn't mean weak. That small doesn't mean helpless. That caring for others makes you strong, not vulnerable. Maya absorbed this information. One incident had changed everything. What about my cubs, my pack? They stay with you. Where you go, they go. That is the way of pack. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in the drill yard again. Her injuries had healed, leaving only scars. She wore her uniform with pride. Around her stood her 12 cubs ready for training, but they weren't alone. 20 more cubs had asked to join the training sessions. Their parents had given permission after watching what happened during the raid. They wanted their cubs to learn the techniques that had saved lives. Maya looked at them all. Today we start with basics. Stance, balance, movement. Remember, strength is important, but technique matters more. Intelligence matters more. Caring for your pack matters most of all. The cubs listened intently. Gresh stood at the front, having appointed himself as Maya's second-in-command. He took his role seriously, helping the younger cubs understand the instructions. Krathzul watched from the side of the yard. Xena stood beside him. She has changed us, Xena observed. The cubs train differently now. They think differently. Good, Krathzul said. Change is how we survive, how we grow stronger. The human showed us that there are many kinds of strength. Now we learn from her. Across the galaxy, word was spreading. The story of the human who entered the drill yard and won the loyalty of Karvathi cubs became famous. Other species heard it and wondered. If humans could bridge the gap with the warrior Karvathi, what else were they capable of? Diplomats started requesting humans for liaison positions. Military commanders asked for human tactical advisors. Scientists wanted to collaborate with human researchers. The treaty that had brought Maya to Station Kethris was just the beginning. But Maya didn't think about politics or diplomacy. She focused on her cubs. On teaching them. On preparing them for the future. On being the pack leader they needed her to be. One evening, after a long day of training, Maya sat in her usual spot at the edge of the drill yard. The cubs gathered around her as they always did, their large bodies settling on the ground, forming a protective circle. Gresh rested his head near her hand. She stroked his head absently, thinking about how far she had come. She had arrived expecting hostility. She had found family instead. You know what's funny? Maya said to Gresh. He made a questioning sound. Everyone was worried I wouldn't survive here. They thought the Karvathi would see me as weak and reject me, but they were wrong. You didn't reject me because I was different. You accepted me because I proved I cared. Gresh pressed closer, making a sound that meant contentment. That's the secret, isn't it? Maya continued. It's not about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about showing up every day. It's about standing your ground when it matters. It's about protecting those who matter to you. She looked around at all the cubs surrounding her. Some were sleeping. Others were watching her with half-closed eyes. All of them felt safe here. All of them trusted her completely. You're my pack, Maya said quietly, and I'll always protect you. That's a promise. Krathzul, still watching from across the yard, nodded to himself. Then